Hello. In this video we will try to cover such an exciting feature of TBM as QuickReports. Based on previous experience from previous years, it seems that it is pretty difficult for users to start working with QuickReports. However, after watching this video you will see that the process of creating custom reports is pretty exciting and interesting, and it will not take too much time to build the report which you aim to have. So let's start, and I will try to go through the main basic functionalities, and we'll try to not to forget to mention something, and probably since there are a lot of features in the QuickReport designer, I will leave something for you to discover on your own, but you will see that it's easy to navigate and everything is pretty self-explanatory and easy to discover. A section containing QuickReports can be found under Reports and Templates, QuickReports. And when you open it for the first time, you will see a number of reports existing by default. These reports are built in, and you can double click on any report to preview it. And in the preview window, you can switch to the designer mode. I have to note that all built-in reports will be replaced again when any update is installed. So if you make any change in the existing report, it will be saved, it will work correctly until next update, and with the next update report will be replaced with the default one. So if you want to edit one of built-in reports, it is recommended to switch to the designer mode, export that report to a file, then create custom new report and import that report layout there and make edits in own report, not in built-in one. Probably it will be great to mark built-in reports with some color here, so you know which ones are custom, which are built-in. We will not make a note and implement it in future updates. To create a report, you can just click a new button here, and a new report will be created. Let's name it like this to see it on the first place in the list, and click OK. And when you click OK, a designer will be launched, and here you have empty designer, and from here we can start building our reports. On the left we have toolbar menu, and in the main part you can find preview of your report. At the top here is another toolbar which allows to save current report, switch to view mode, export layout, and import layout. Export layout button allows to save current layout to a file, to exchange it with other users, for example, or for backup, or sending, for example, to developers. If you want to ask for help working on your custom report, you can export layouts, send to developers using TBM forums, for example, and then get new file and import layout to current report. And this button, menu button, it contains very important item from which you have to start working with the report, because any report should have some data source, so it must be bound to some table, and you have to select which table you want to work with, and this table is called data source. If we click this data source item here in the menu, you will see that by default new report has translation job data source, so it will happen all the time. And if you wish, if you need some other data source, for example invoice or translation assignment or translation job task, whatever, you have to delete this data source from here and click add button, and in the list you can select one of existing available data sources for your report. Let's add translation job again, and here we have when data source is selected, we can find a list of fields available in that data source. When some data source is added, here on the screen you can create calculated fields and filter your data source. Filtering is happening on the server side, so if you want to apply some basic filter to all data which is supplied from database to your report, you have to use this filter button here, and when you click it, filter editor will be opened. You already know UI of this filter editor from previous tutorials, for example about report tutorial. This filter editor allows to create different groups and items and build any conditions using this visual designer, or in advanced mode you can write your filter criteria manually. Add calculated fields allows to create custom calculated fields in your data source. For example, in translation job we have assigned volume and total volume, but we do not have unassigned volume. You can create a new calculated field, name it unassigned volume, and provide some expression here to how this field will be calculated. Again, we have this helper here at the bottom, which allows you to access list of fields from your data source, some constants, a lot of functions and operators. So it's pretty easy to build, but I will do this manually, like average volume minus assigned volume. Here we got unassigned volume calculated field, and I click save, and now among built-in fields you will find this unassigned volume field, which is marked with this icon, which informs you that this field is calculated 1, and you can edit it here if needed, like this. So this is about data sources, and since we started to talk about dashboard menu, here we have also a title, my quick report. For example, we can make the title visible and hidden. We can add an image one for which will be displayed in the title of your quick report. And the next item here is currency. Currency is also a pretty important symbol option. When you will be adding any values to your dashboard, for example, you will be creating some charts or grids or pivot tables, whatever, and display some amounts there. By default, report displays decimal values as in the form of currency. Currency formatting is applied by default. And here we can select which currency is used by default in the dashboard or quick report. For example, in my case, since I'm using Russian local, default currency is will be rubles. But if, for example, we know that in our instance of TBM our base currency is euro, it will be correct to select euro here and then select the culture for the currency in this drop-down list. For example, I can go to German, find German, Germany, like this. And now all values will be displayed as euro, but of course it's not always correct. Sometimes we have, for example, average volume, which is not money number. So I will show how to format values later when we will be adding widgets to our report. Under parameters, we can also create a parameter list, and these parameters will be specified by a user upon dashboard creation, and then we can filter or do something based on these parameter values to display correctly data in our report. So that's all about necessary important dashboard menu items. And now let's start talking about actual process of report creation. And to achieve this, I will just go through all these items on the toolbar and try to explain you in short or somewhere in detail what one or another option means. So let's go one by another, and the first element here is a grid. I click on this button and grid will be immediately added to the report layout. By default it's empty, and any widget on the quick report, it contains some helper buttons elements here along the border of that item. At the top we have this icon which allows us to drag item. For example, if I will create two grids, I have them stacked vertically by default, but I can move it wherever I want, like this. And on the left we have these buttons which allows to control how this grid is bound to a data, how it looks like, how it's being filtered, and let's try to go through some options here. First of all, we have to create some columns in the grid and provide data. We know that our data source represents translation job table. Bounding to data is achieved using this button, and if you hover mouse pointer over it, you can see that it's named binding. I click it and I get UI for setting a binding for our grids. And here we have columns, and we can create as many columns as needed. And when I clicked add column, now I can select any field from my data source. For example, let's find number, job number, like this, and grid will immediately load data from our table and display all our jobs, all numbers which we have in the data source. Then I click add another column, find for example date. Here we have another options for dates, because by default dates are grouped by year, and we can see year here. What it means, if we add amount, also another column, for example amount, and here we have type of a column, and when we added number and date columns here, the type was selected as dimension. But for amount, by default, type is selected as a measure, and for measures, application automatically applies some summary type. And what we have here, we have different numbers, different years, and sum by these two columns. If, for example, I will remove number field and only year remains, then you can see that not list of jobs is displayed here, but we get total amounts of all jobs per each year. And if we will go to date and select some other group interval, for example quarter or months, or what we can select here, yeah, probably it will be months. Now we have months, but it displays all months from all years. However, we have such selection as months year. And now when I select this, I get total amounts for all years split by months, like this. So this is difference between dimensions and measures. And if I want to display some amount, not as some totals, and I do not want to apply some summary type here, I select it as dimension, and this way I get separate amounts for each for all columns which I have in this table. Say I can now add currency. If currency is complex field, then I have to select which field from this entity type I want to display, so it will be a name. And now we get currency name in the grid. However, you can see that column name here is date is correct, amount is correct, and name is not correct. And we can rename this column somehow. To do that, we have a number of groups here in the properties panel, like data shaping, where we can order and group somehow information in the column. Under options, we have a caption, which is named by default, but we can rename it to currency. And you can see that I renamed it, and it was immediately applied to a column in the grid. Under totals, we can add totals to the bottom of the table if needed. So I can add count, for example, for this currency, and for amount we can add not count but sum. And now at the bottom of the table we have total summary and a number of records in the grid. Amount is displayed as currency, and if you remember, I told that it is possible to apply different formatting, and here we have format group here, and format type is auto. And when auto formatting is enabled, then amounts of decimal type will be formatted as currency. But if we do not want to do that, we can select number here, and unit, for example, it could be ones or thousands or millions. Say it will be ones, and precision is 2, and group separator can be included. And now we have amounts formatted without any currency symbol. And take a note that this approach is about binding, about summary types, about captions, totals, everything. It is common for all widgets which we will be creating during this tutorial, so I won't be noticing and repeating the same when we'll be describing next elements, next widget types during this video. I intentionally have skipped this conditional formatting item, and we can talk about it a bit later. Now probably let's return to type of column. Until now we mentioned dimensions and measures, and still we have few more types here. One is delta, another one is sparkline. So let's try to add a delta column. I create a new column and select type as delta, and in the delta I have to select actual and target values. Say actual, it will be amount, and target value, let's say it will be some calculated field which will return us, say, 10,000 euros. And now a delta column is created, and we can see that difference between target and actual value for our amount. And for here we can under these field options we can also open delta options here and configure how this delta is displayed as value or as a bar, and you can go and check which values we can select here. The next one is the sparkline. Sparkline is the small chart displayed in the column. For example, again, we want to display amount, and under argument, sparkline argument, you see that it is highlighted, saying that we have to select some argument for sparkline. And of course, it's obvious that we can select date here, like that, and year. Let's say we can select year, months, like this. And you can find this small chart here in the table. So another way to represent your data and to display it in the form which you like. And the next type of column is final column, is hyperlink. It's not used very frequently, but if you have some links in your table, for example, vendor profile or something like that, then you can use this hyperlink, and you will be able to click on the contents of the cell and open some URL from there. I forgot to mention these hidden dimensions and hidden measures. These hidden data items, they can be used to perform various like data shaping or analysis operations by measures on dimensions that do not directly take part in the visual representation of data. So you can add hidden dimensions, use them somewhere in filtering or in conditional formatting, but they won't be displayed anywhere in the grid. Next, let's go to this to the second part of this item, helper item. It is called filters. Under filters, we can specify some additional filters, which is additional to data source filter, which will be applied to this particular grid. The next one is interactivity. Also a very interesting group of options. It is also available in all widget types, so we will now cover it and won't return to this later. First of all, it is master filter mode. Master filter mode, you can use the grid as a filter for other report elements. Say you can switch to single or to multiple. It specifies if we can select one row or multiple rows in the grid. And then when we select something in the grid, it will serve as filter for other elements. So when I have selected these 3 types of jobs from September, October, and November of 2017, then other charts or whatever we have on the dashboard, it will be filtered only for these selected jobs. And to show this functionality in action, let's skip for now pivot grid and let's add some chart to our report. And let's display this chart here. And again, let's bind it to some data. We have values, arguments, and series bindings. For example, what we want to display, we want to display like total volumes per, say, language pair. Let's find language direction and select name. Now we want to have some values, and let's say it will be average volume. And you can see that we now have a chart which is built for each language pair which we have in the table, and some totals are displayed for each of our language pair. And you can see that we do not have too much information here, and if I will start selecting some data in this grid, you can see that this chart refreshes and displays more and more data in more languages, because this selection here we have selected under interactivity, we have selected multiple filter mode. So this is how it works, and if we select none, then these 2 elements become non-dependent, and they build on the whole translation job table. In the same manner, if I will select the chart, go to interactivity, select multiple filter mode, and select some value here. How to do that? It should allow targeted dimensions, probably points. Yeah, arguments, and I should be able to select it. Series. Yeah, you can see that I'm clicking on the bar, and contents of this table changes accordingly to and displays only jobs for a selected language pair, like this. So great. Now let's disable this master filter mode and return to interactivity again and continue to check options here which we have. Drill down. Drill down capability allows to change detail level of data displayed in the dashboard on the fly. And grid supports drill down for rows. And when drill down is enabled, a user can click on some row and view details. Drill down requires that columns section contains several dimensions at the top, from the least detailed to the most detailed dimension. Say we have date dimension here, then amount, let's convert it into measure, currency is dimension again, and amount is sparkline. And now let's go to interactivity and try to enable drill down. We have to go to columns and move this currency to put it before measures. So dimensions and then measures. And now you can see that currency is hidden in the table. And if I will click on some row here, for example May, we will go further and get details from May 2018 by currencies, like this. So drill down allows to achieve this type of kind of interactivity. Now, if to finish with interactivity, we have ignore master filters, which is off. And for example, if we enable master filtering from this chart and we have few other items and we want to make it possible to filter from this chart some other elements but not this grid, we can ignore master filters, and then selection in this chart won't affect on data displayed in this grid. So that's about interactivity. Cross data source filtering, what it means: if we have few data sources in our report and this report, these data sources contain identical fields, for example, translation job has date field and invoice has date field or customer field, then filtering, it will be possible to enable master filtering by that field, but in this case you have to check that this data, you have to, first of all, create few data sources and have elements bound to different data sources, and these data sources must have identical field names. In this case it will be possible to filter both elements using some single filtering element. Now let's go to next type of data which can be displayed in the report. It is pivot grid. Very powerful element, and it allows to analyze data using rows and columns. The greatest thing about pivot table, you will see now that we can create multiple measures or dimensions, and then we will get some kind of interactivity by allowing to collapse and expand groups. So let's start to configure this pivot table. We need some values. Let's say we want to analyze what we want, amounts, yeah, amounts. And we may have different measures. For example, it could be customers or currencies or language pairs or responsible persons or whatever. So in rows, let's add some measure. For example, it will be currency name, and let's rename it to currency, like this. So you can see that now we have currencies as rows. Now let's add some column. For example, it could be language direction. Let's find language direction, select name, and we have some columns, and a number of these columns correspond to a number of language pairs which we have in our translation jobs. So now we have this multi-dimensional, two-dimensional array table which displays amounts which we got in each language pair and in each currency. Now let's somehow improve this. Let's add another this one will be language pair, another column, for example date. This will be interesting one. Let's find date and let's move it higher. So date will be the first dimension and nested one will be language pair, and date is grouped by year. As you see under binding we have group interval year. So we have now 5 years, and I can click on each year and find information about language pair inside every year. Additionally, if we will group not by year but for example quarter and year, now we can do that. Or we can add for example another date column like this, move it to the second place. Here we can select year group interval, and in the second one we can select months. So now we have this type of interactivity. We can expand a year. Now we've got list of months, then we expand the months and get language pair in each month. The same applies to rows. Under rows we can add another row, for example not only currency but let's find customer, and again customer name, and rename it to customer like that. So now we have indeed multi-dimensional table because we can expand currencies, find information about customers. So we now know how much money or amounts of jobs were created in particular year, month, in particular language pair for particular currency and customer. And where this column and row crosses, we can find total amount for these parameters. And if we will go to options of our pivot, we can find a number of options like show or hide caption. Pivot 1, you can see it here. Layout, under layout we can make some selections here, also hide or display totals, select position at the end or at the beginning of rows and columns like this. Under initial states we can set to auto expand columns and rows. For example, we want to automatically expand these currencies and display customers, then I click yes, and these rows will be expanded by default. Next element here is tree map. Tree map item allows to visualize data in some nested rectangles that are called tiles. Let's add this element here and let's try to configure it to see something. For example, again, value will be like amount and argument will be, for example, language pair, probably name. And you can see that now we've got this type of visualization showing that this language is the most popular one, and then lower and lower and lower, and we are going to right bottom corner showing lowest values. And again, all the configurations are the same here. We again have interactivity, some options here. Under layout we can you can analyze it by on your own and check which options we have here, how labels are displayed, for example argument and value, and so like this. Let's remove it and move forward. Scatter chart, also pretty simple and not frequently used widget. It displays data in such manner. Let's add some x-axis, for example amount. Under y-axis we have say margin in percent, like this. Under argument we may have what we can select here probably language pair, like this. And now we need to set some weight. Weight should point to data item whose values are used to calculate the weight of data points. Let's say it could be margin amount, like that. And now we've got this picture, and again you can go on your own to check which options we have here, some how calculations are performed, and etc. Alright, let's remove this element as well. Next elements are cards and gauges. They serve like for the same purposes, and display some actual value over some target value. Let's try to create cards element and won't touch gauges at all. Also, let's go to bindings, and we need to configure somehow a card. Series will be created, say, for customer name, where it is, like this. And what we want to display in cards, probably let's select amount. Amount and actual value is displayed here, and now we can select some target. Let's say we want to target, I don't know, probably amount as well, but summary type will be maximum. And we get some maximum value, some actual value, and the difference between maximum and actual. Also, we can add spark line for date, for example, and now we get a small chart displayed on each card. So also pretty useful feature, and it is used in built-in reports somewhere as well. Again, we can select a group here and have a number of options under settings tab, like we can select layout, we can fix rows, columns, and etc. Text box allows to display some just textual information on the report. Image allows to load some image. Also, it is not interactive, just loading an image. And bound image, if we have some image in the database, then it can be displayed in the report. Then let's skip for now maps and go to filter group. And in this group, from this group, we can create different filters, allowing to manipulate data displayed in our report. We have range filter, we have combo box, we have list box, we have tree view, and date filter. Let's start with the first one, range filter. Range filter is something which allows you to specify start and end, and not dates, but range start and range end values. And this range can be different, but in most cases it will be some date. So I have added range filter, go to binding, and argument will be translation job date. For value, we can select anything which could be used to build this kind of chart to visualize data for this filter. So let's select, for example, amount in base currency, and here we have a filter, and you can see that by default the whole range is selected, all years are here. Again, we can change summary type, go to argument and change group interval from year to, for example, quarter year. Now we have more selections here, and I can probably double click doesn't work. I can move ranges through the filter, and you can see that data in my widgets get immediately updated, and we as we narrow down filtering, we get less data here as well. And all these elements are controlled by this filter, and if we want to avoid that, we go to interactivity and ignore master filters, And this way this grid is not affected by selections made here, like that. During initial recording of this video I forgot to mention about this time range period, a time range filter, that it is possible to create custom periods. So it will be short insert in this video, and then we will return to original one. When we select range filter, we have this options button here, and here we have custom periods. And under custom periods we can create some periods which will be easy for user to quickly switch between. Let's create few ones and I will show you how it works. So let's say it will be period 1, and let's name it, say, current year. And under start mode and end mode we can select something. It could be fixed or flow. Fixed means that we can specify some fixed pre-selected start date for our custom period, and flow allows us to determine it based on some criteria. And since we are using date field for this filter, then we have this selection, year or quarter. And let's say offset will be 0, and now we see that our period is shown like this from Q1 2021, and end mode is none. Let's say it will be flow as well, and year will be like this, year plus 1, and this allows us to get current year, and it will be set as default. So by default current year will be selected. Now let's add another one, and let's name it, for example, last 5 years. And again, start year will be -5 or -4 I think, and end date will be +1. So in total we get 5 years, and now we have two custom periods. And let's add another one, and let's say it will be quarter, current quarter. And let's apply the same approach like this, and you see that since now it's July of 2021, Q3 2021 will be selected using this period. So now we have 3 periods, and one is default one. And when user will be using your report, they will be able to see this button here, select date time period, and when they click on here, they get some selection of time periods predefined by us during report designer. And say I select current quarter, and you can see that current quarter was selected. When I select the last 5 years, we get last 5 years selected in this time range filter. And another filter which I forgot to describe in the original video is in first version of that video is date filter. So let's check it out. Also here I add this date filter, and we can configure it as well. Let's say dimension will be date of our translation job, and this one is shorter one than time range filter. Say if I will delete it, and this date filter allows to save a lot of space. We can put other filters in this vertical stack, and it allows for our chart to occupy more space. And in this filter we have this button, set filter, which allows us to quickly set data which we want to view in our report. And in the same manner, if we will go to options, we have custom periods list, which allows us to quickly create some custom periods. So let's say it will be flow, some years, and let's create another one, second period, another flow. And when we are creating some custom periods, they are added to these date filters as buttons. So it's very, very easy to switch between them, and I can just click on these buttons, as you see, and our report gets updated immediately, and there is no need to set some dates manually for users. We just need to provide some logical names to custom periods which we have created for our user, and we can create as many buttons here as needed, and it's very easy to switch between them. So that's all which I wanted to add, and now let's return to original video and continue watching this tutorial. In the same manner, we can create other filter elements, for example, combo box. Let's say we want to be able to filter not only by date, but for example by currencies. Let's add a dimension. Let's find currency here. Currency name. And now we have this combo box, which allows us to select some currency. We can go to, not to options, probably to options here. And here we have type. It is standard or checked. When for standard, we can select only one value here. For checked, we can use select all or particular multiple currencies like that. So we can select only euro, and now our widgets are filtered accordingly to selections made here. And now let's add another filtering element. This is list box. Instead of drop down, which takes less space, list box takes more space. And if we want to filter, for example, by, let's not repeat ourselves, customers, clients, language pairs, let's find translation project. Where it is, progress, specialization, yeah, we can use this one, specialization, full path. And now we get list of all specializations which are used in our translation jobs, and we can also quickly filter our data by selecting, for example, these two specializations, and our widgets get reflected again. For tree view, it's obvious. We can create some nested elements. For example, let's again do that. We can create as many dimensions as needed. For example, first dimension will be date, and group interval will be year, and second dimension will be, say, customer name, like that. And now we have tree view with years and customers. So if we want to display information for capital languages from 2018, I select capital languages here, and we get corresponding data from this year for this customer in our widgets. And of course, all these filters are summarized, so we now get information in euro for these two specializations, and for this year and this customer. And no data, because our range filter is set for absolutely different year, which is set here. And if I will expand selection here, we will finally probably get some data. Maybe I have to select all here. Yeah, and now we've got some information. So we can create as many filters, and they all will be added to each other to form your data in your report. And now let's move to last group of elements here, layout. Layout contains two widgets. One is named group, and another one is tab container. Group allows you to combine report items within a report, and this serves a number of purposes. The first one allows to combine report items into separate layout group and have some caption and border across these grouped elements. And another purpose, which is more important one, it allows to manage interaction between dashboard items within and outside of group. Let's demonstrate it on practice. Let's create some group, and let's move, for example, grid into this group, and pivot. So now we have a group. Let's move it under our filter elements like that. And these elements are outside of our group. Now, when we make selections, you can see that these widgets are updated, but these ones are not. We have the whole data here. Say I select only 2019, this chart and these cards are updated, but this pivot grid is not updated because it is placed into a group, and any elements which are outside of this group and any filter elements are not affecting on elements inside this group. And if we select a group, we can provide some name to this group under settings, under options tab, and under interactivity you can see that ignore master filters is enabled by default for this group. I can disable it, make it off, and now selections which I make in external elements are also affecting on elements inside this group. The same applies to tab container, but elements are placed into separate tabs, which allowing you to create as many widgets as possible, and which will not occupy the whole space, and you can split them by corresponding tabs. For example, you can create one tab for your filters, another one for pivot table, another one for charts, etc. And to demonstrate how it works, let me demonstrate another functionality which also available for all widgets on the report. It is widget type conversion. We have a group here, and we have interactivity, yeah, and option. And where is conversion? We do not have conversion for layout group, but we have it, for example, for charts. The last element before delete is convert to, and if we want to display, for example, pies here instead of bars, I select convert, and now I can select any of these elements which I want this element to convert to. So now we are using bars and we want to use pies. I select this, and this element gets converted into this one, to pies. Okay, and let's return to our tabs. I create a tab. Now I can move this group. Group cannot be moved, sorry. Let's move grid, for example, to this page. And we can click plus sign here to create another tab. Let's move pivot table to this second page. And then chart also to this second page, or to first page, doesn't matter. So this way we can drag and drop items and get our tabs filled with elements and cards. It can be moved to second page like that. Now let's move our filter here, Canva box here, and our tabs, let's move it below time range, then decrease the height of time range, so we get more space for our tabbed group and less space for our filters. So filters now on the right. Now here we have two pages. We can control how filtering works for pages, and we can edit page some options and control filters per each page. So we can apply filters for one page but do not apply for another one. And under page settings we have this setting, display item as a page. If page contains only one element, then caption will be automatically taken from an element which belongs to that page. Let's, for example, create a new page, and let's return from this page 2 cards to page 3. And you can see that page 3 caption and page 2 caption were automatically changed to captions of elements which are placed into these pages. So this allows to save some space, to remove caption from here and put it into the tab caption. What's next? The next is exporting data. When we are viewing some information in our report, we can export it. When we select any element, we have export button here, and we can export contents of that element to PDF, to image, and to Excel format. And in the same manner, we have export button which is common for the whole report, and this one will export all information which we have on our dashboard or quick report, how to call it. So what else? Any element can be expanded to be viewed in the full screen mode. So when I select this pies element and click full screen, maximize button, this will be temporarily expanded to the full screen to increase the size of text and to allow you to view information in more detail. If to try to return to maps, it is not a very frequently used feature, because we only have countries selected for customers. We have country, and based on that information, we can plot some information, some values on maps, and say, let's select this geo map, and here we get world map. And we also have some options for this element. Let's try to put some data here. So we have a value. Let's say it will be country, not country, sorry. It will be amount. And now we have to select latitude and longitude. Yeah, because we need to use another element. Let's convert it from this one to horopath map. And now we can select country name. Let's go to settings, attribute, and select customer country name. And when I select this, now based on country name selected for customers, corresponding amounts and are displayed on the map, and these countries are highlighted on the map, and we can scroll up and down to view this information. So that's about maps. And now let's return to a feature which I skipped in the beginning. It's about conditional formatting. Very interesting feature. And now when we went through all elements, widget types available in QuickReports, now we can try to play with conditional formatting. Conditional formatting is a way to highlight your data, to visualize it in a more eye-catching manner, and to attract some attention to one or another values. And let's start with a grid. Let's open a grid, and under binding settings, we can select some column, and in the options we can find conditional formatting group here. And here we have a list of conditional formatting rules. We can create as many rules as needed. And let's try to create a new one. And here we get a dialog where we can select different options, how we want to conditionally format values contained in this amount column. First of all, we are selecting values which are used to draw this conditional formatting contents for this column, and we select which column we want to apply this to, so we can get information from another column but draw something in the current column. And then we have to select the condition type. There are a lot of condition types, and I offer you to self-study them on your own, but let's try just to check something. For example, the simplest one, value, and we compare it with something. Or we can select tab bottom, top n, bottom n. This will select some most frequently appearing values in the grid and show them to ours. Or we can display, say, bars. For example, this is the simplest one. Here we have another list of options where we can select bar color. And here now, if we will close this dialog, you can see that now this amount column contains not only values itself, but these small bars representing how large amount is in the row. Let's go to binding again, and let me show you some other types of conditional formatting. Let's do not remove this bar rule, but add another one, and let's select, for example, range icons. And here we can select some icons which will be displayed based on value in one or another row. Let's select these range icons. Now we can configure it to specify which icon is displayed based on percentage of a value. And if I will hide it, now you can see it is not displayed until previous one is removed. Let's check it. Nope. Range set. And if to remove it, yeah, now we have this icon. So not all formatting rules are compatible with each other, but this way you can create formatting rules and visually improve your reports. Let's check some other one. For example, color range bar. This is the same as bar, but it will have different colors depending on how large or how small value is. We have gradients also in the same manner. They will be drawn in the grid, but using not static color but some gradient, and we can specify a number of segments and etc. So this is about conditional formatting. This is for grids. Let's, for example, go to pivot table and configure amount here. Again, conditional formatting, add something, and let's say top and bottom, top n, apply some color, and now we get formatting applied to our measures. We can go to condition, to miscellaneous, find a way how this conditional formatting rule is displayed. It is displayed in the row or in the column or in the on some level or in the cell. So here we can configure it as needed. So pretty long video. I was trying to explain everything pretty quickly, but seems like it wasn't possible to achieve. At least we have demonstrated all the widgets and the whole approach which is used to supply information to these widgets, to form it somehow and represent in a way which you would like to see in your report. And now I hope that the task of shaping your data and present it to yourself or to your colleagues became much easier task for you, and we will be happy to answer questions during the process of custom report creation on forums. Please ask, send us your layouts. We will be helping them to improve them and answer your possible questions. And I didn't mention that when your report is ready and you're ready to save it, you click on Save button, close the report, and you're getting back to a list of reports, and here you can find your report, and to generate it, to view it, you just double click on it and it will be generated in view mode. So you can click on elements and make your selections and filters without all these helper menus and options available in the designer mode. So you can quickly use your report. And if you want to edit something, make some changes in your report, you can click on this button, switch to the designer mode, make necessary edits. For example, let's go to our pivot, and we do not want to see currency symbol here, so we go to options, select amount sum, go to probably to format and select number. Unit will be ones. Now we get amounts without currency symbol. My changes now are successful. Again, click save and switch back to the view mode. And now under my pivot table, I will see edited view. So thank you for watching this video, and see you next time. Bye bye.